Pro cameras, real cameras, big cameras, whatever we call them, they have lots of physical controls, buttons, dials. Smartphones, not so much. Apple's lead designer Johnny Ive was on a mission to eliminate buttons. Well, RIP to Johnny's design style, because buttons and ports are here again, and it's glorious. The iPhone 15 Pro gave us a new button. It gave us the action button. With the iPhone 16, it gives us yet another new button with the camera control. Is Apple giving us pro camera controls on our iPhone? Well, it's complicated. There's good, there's bad, and there's my theory on what can be done to make it awesome. To talk about camera control, let's first talk about why pro cameras give us buttons and dials. Those buttons and dials have distinct jobs. They give us tactile feedback. I can use muscle memory. I know where to adjust exposure. I know how to change the focus point without having to look at a screen or dig through menus. Over the past 10 days since the iPhone 16 Pro has arrived in my hands, I've been using the camera, and I wanted to spend some time focused on the camera control button. So I went to the newest photographic site in my area, the remodeled terminal at Portland International Airport. The camera control button really has three purposes: launch, capture, and adjust. Launch is straightforward. It's a physical button. It moves when you press it. The first press launches the camera, and then it's a shutter release. That gives us the capture. Even without the camera control button, there have been lots of ways to get to the camera. I noted like 5 or 6 of them when I put together a collection of my favorite iPhone photography tips recently. If you want to see that, hit the link to that down in the description below. So we've got launch, we've got capture, great. But the button is also capacitive. It reacts to pressure and sliding motions from your finger. And by default, this is used to adjust the camera settings. And this is where things get complicated. It's not complicated in its functions. The idea is pretty straightforward. A light press brings up the selection menu, and then you slide it to adjust. The default camera's options include adjustments for zoom, exposure, switching between the various camera lenses, and a couple more fiddly things like the photographic styles. A double press lets you change between which one of those options you're adjusting. So you can press and then swipe to adjust the zoom. Or you could double press, switch to the exposure option, and then swipe to make the overall scene brighter or darker. This all sounds great, but when you start using it, you realize how this one physical button isn't going to be the same as your big camera with lots of them. There's 2 things that make the camera control button less than ideal. The first is that it's easy to tap and then swipe on accident. Depending on what you're doing, you might find yourself unexpectedly on a different lens or end up vastly overexposed for the situation. The second is that with so many things in one button, you have to look at the screen to understand what you're controlling or what value it's on. You're still looking at on-screen controls. Let's take switching camera lenses as an example. If you have the iPhone Pro and you want to switch to the wide angle or the telephoto lens, using the old way, the old on-screen control we've had for years, it's one step. You go to the bottom of the viewfinder area and just tap on the lens that you want to use. Great. If you're going to do that same change with the camera control button, the best case is that you tap once to activate the camera control and then swipe to change which camera you're using. But if when you tap in your camera control, you're not on lens selection, it means you have to double tap to change the controls, then swipe to lens selection, then tap to choose that control, and then swipe to change the lenses. That's not great. I don't think it's hopeless. I think that smart camera apps are going to figure out that less is more. Don't try to cram every camera option into the one button. Let me configure it. If I knew that the camera control was always going to perform a specific action with a tap or with a double tap or a swipe, boom, now I've got the power of a tactile physical control, coupled with that reassurance that it's going to do exactly what I want every time, just like on my big camera. As I record this, actually just today, I see news that Halide has released its update adding camera control functionality to their app. It sounds like instead of giving us like the half dozen options that Apple has in the default app, they're going to give us precisely 2. And there's apparently an option to lock that control in place so that an inadvertent swipe doesn't change things unintentionally. Yes, more of this, please. App makers, make it happen. Or if you think my idea that less is more is completely crazy, just let me know in the comments down below. Nicely, please and thank you.